Hello, everyone, and today I have another top five thing for prospects. This one's the second round. I find it easier to just organize it this way. But my first one is Deebo Samuel. I'm not sure if we're going to have to trade up for this one. We may not, but no one has taken over that wide receiver three spot yet, and Tread could really use some level of competition. I don't think we really have anyone there that would warrant said competition because I'm pretty sure the only real competition they have is Chad Beebe and Brandon Zylstra, and I feel like they're still going to go with Treadwell out of those. But he would be actual competition. He isn't the tallest. He's only 5'11", but he's 214 pounds, and he's built like a running back. And he did run a 4.4 840, so significantly faster than Tread. And he's a very competitive guy when you watch him. He's fearless over the middle, and he really can run through arm tackles, and he kind of turns into a running back in space and with the ball in his hands. He also has 4 career kickoff returns, so he could be a potential replacement for Marcus Sherrills as well. He had that nice little dual purpose going. And he does need to get a lot better at running routes. He does have a chance to be another Montgomery type, from Green Bay, because I do think he's kind of built more like a running back. He's playing wide receiver, but he kind of moves and acts like a running back with the ball in his hands. And we could really see another Montgomery kind of happen, or maybe even with the way the jet sweeps have kind of come in, you can kind of, incorporate him more in the running game anyway, and he becomes maybe more of a offensive weapon than just a wide receiver. My second one, I have Ja'Kai Polite, and this is mainly because in the second round, it's especially you're at 50. There's usually someone that falls throughout the second round, possibly even the third round. There's always one or two guys that tend to fall, and Polite had some issues at the combine for interviews for not being so polite, and I don't know if he'll be there, but I do know if he is there, Minnesota needs to really think about it because he did fall down the draft boards because, once again, not so polite in the combine interviews. And we don't know what the future holds for Everson Griffin. We do know he had to restructure his contract, and I've seen multiple things that said it was a player option or a team option. There's some kind of option on him on if he gets 6 or more sacks, which he easily could. We know Everson Griffin can do that. And Ja'Kai Polite's a very talented pass rusher. Now, he is a little bit on the lighter side. He kind of struggles with the run game and all that stuff. Strength is kind of an issue, but he's kind of this just really athletic speed rusher kind of guy. And the last guy we had like that was Danielle Hunter, and that turned out pretty well. So if he can take to coaching, this could be an actual thing that you go with. And I think he would likely be a designated pass rusher the first year, maybe the first 2 years potentially. But I think in time we could be looking at a complete player on the edge again on with Ja'Kai Polite, and who knows, maybe he becomes something that is actually worthwhile instead of just this nickel pass rusher. And especially since just thinking about 2019, if you think about all the pass rushers we would then have, you would have obviously Griffin and Hunter. Then you have, you got Weatherly and Anthony Barr, who does have some pass rush ability. They don't always use it, but he also has $10 million in sack incentives. So I would think he's going to be used a little bit more rushing the passer this next couple of years here. And if you put all of that together, you can make some really, really frustrating fronts in terms of nickel and dime packages, especially when you got Zimmer at the helm. So this wouldn't be a bad pick, even though I think some people might not like it just because, you're talking about more defensive talent as opposed to these offensive linemen, which I do think they probably should go 2 out of the first 3 rounds on the offensive line, but that's just my personal thought. And I think, but an edge rusher, I think, of his kind of talent could be an exception, though, to this kind of ruling. And I think we could do a lot with him, but at the same time, I think you do have to be a little cautious because of that personality thing. Number 3, I have Dre'Mont Jones, an interior defensive lineman from Ohio State. Now, I'm pretty sure, should be available at 50 because he's kind of a tweener. He's 281 pounds. That's what he weighed in at the combine. And he has really struggled in the run game at times, but he doesn't really have all that athleticism to be an end, but he has more than enough. And he's actually an above average athlete for the interior, but I have some questions about him being a good enough one to go out to the outside. But he is a really good one in the middle. And he has a litany of pass rush moves, and this would help replace Sheldon Richardson's production in the middle from last year when it comes to pressuring the quarterback and just pretty much eating that pocket up from, just collapsing it a little more from the middle, as opposed to how Linval does it. And Shamar Stephen kind of allows you to do this just because Shamar is more of a run stuffing kind of defensive tackle, and this would be kind of more of a rotation piece, and you can kind of start rotating all those guys between, obviously Dre'Mont, you got Linval, you got Jaleel Johnson, you got Jalen Holmes, Shamar Stephen. You can really start a little rotation in the middle of the defensive line there that could really work with Jaleel Johnson kind of being your jack of all trades, master of none type. And Linval's obviously your big nose tackle, nose guard kind of guy. And then Jaleel, once again, can back him up. Shamar Stephen's a little bit bigger, but can also kind of back up that role. But I would prefer him as a run stuffing 3-tech. And Jalen Holmes might be able to serve a similar purpose to Dre'Mont Jones, but I think Dre'Mont Jones is better than Jalen Holmes. And with Tom Johnson gone as of right now, he's still a free agent. So Jalen Holmes is once again like your only real pass rusher in the middle. And I think they really need to add to that, whether that's, finding some kind of role player in free agency still, like kind of in the late stages, or through the draft. And I think Dre'Mont Jones in, the second round could be really good, even though, once again, some people might think it's a slight reach. I think, given how he plays, it might not be that much of a reach because of how valued pass rushers are in the league, and he's one on the interior. So, yeah. Number 4, I have Julian Love. He's a cornerback out of Notre Dame. And the reason why there are rumors of trading either Rhodes or Waynes still are with Waynes. And Love is a bump and run corner, just through and through. And he would fit that press man coverage thing that Zim loves to do on the outside really, really well. And he does have build-up speed and does lack some acceleration. A little stiff in the hips a little bit, and that's what makes him better in man coverage and zone coverage, though. But he does have tremendous ball skills, as Love does have 5 picks in his career. And overall, I think he is a solid tackler. He does try to kind of cut down the receiver instead of just wrapping up sometimes, but for the most part, he is a solid tackler. And when he does it's kind of easy to evade when he, tries to cut him down from the legs up there. But I think he's generally pretty good at wrapping up at the catch point when they do catch the ball. And I think this would be more of a scheme fit kind of thing. Like, I really wouldn't like him in a zone heavy system, but in a system where they are asked to press the guys a lot. And once again, I think the main reason why they would even look at corner this high is because you don't know what's happening with Trey Waynes. You don't know what's happening with Rhodes in the next 2 or 3 years anyway. You kind of need to prepare for a potential issue there. Mackenzie Alexander's contract is running up, I believe, next season. So you start to kind of question, like, oh, what's your plan here? Because you got Mike Hughes. If both Waynes and Alexander leave next year, then you got Hughes, Hill, and Xavier. So, and Xavier kind of has been up in the air of whether or not he's going to be with the team or not for the future. So I think adding another guy this high might once again seem to people like, why are you drafting more corners? But I don't think it's a first round need, but I think in the second or third round you could really, really, really start to look at these corners. And then my fifth and last guy for this video, I got Bobby Evans, which is, even if Minnesota does take a lineman in the first round, if this is an interior lineman, whether that's, like in my video, I said Chris Lindstrom, or you got a Garrett Bradbury, or maybe you draft a Cody Ford and you want to put him in guard. Any of those things, really. If you draft a guy in the interior specifically, I think there's a chance they could go back-to-back linemen in general, but I think Bobby Evans is a guy they might really target because, once again, you can take that guy to develop behind both O'Neal and Reef to either take one of their spots down the line. And I think Evans is kind of a perfect example of that, as he can really get after you in the run game. Even though he's a little bit smaller, he has great functional play strength, and he's just really, really athletic in general. And he kind of has a bit of nastiness to him in the run game, but his hand technique in pass protection is a work in progress. He's not the most polished pass protector, and that's kind of a problem. But if you're able to bench him for a year, maybe two, depending on what you want to do with the offensive line with Reef and O'Neal, you have a guy who has played both left and right tackle in Evans before, because he was at right tackle when Orlando Brown was there, who's now a right tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. And he does possess all of the athletic and movement kind of skills that you would want, especially in the zone kind of schemes. So I think he could really fit with what they want to do athletically. It's just a matter of, can you develop his pass protection at that point? And I do have a little bit more faith this year than we did last year, and that's not a Sperano thing. It's mainly because of what happened with Sperano. It's not that I didn't like Sperano. I did like Sperano. I thought the first year we were really able to address the line, and Sperano got some form of talent, the line got a lot better. So there's that. But I do think the fact of losing Sperano to, dying in the heart conditions, I think that really hurt a lot of this offensive line development. And I think now that we got Dennison and Kubiak in here, guys who have worked with, together a lot and have seemed to have generated pretty good offensive line, specifically in the run blocking, I think this is a guy they would be very interested in. And I would like to know what your comments are down below, your thoughts on these guys or other guys that I may not have mentioned. But until next time, I bid y'all adieu.